I'm going to be talking about running AI agents inside TEs. I'm sure you've heard like a lot of similar content today, so bear with me. But there are some unique challenges in doing so, and so we'll be looking at them. Talking about agents, right? Agents are not just chatbots anymore. They're doing a bunch of different things, right? Calling APIs, running queries, kicking off workflows, sometimes talking to other agents in the chain. And to do all of that, the agent itself has to see the underlying data in plain text, which is okay. That's not the problem. But the problem is that everyone else in the infrastructure who can see that. So the cloud provider's hypervisor, their staff, your own engineers who are reading the logs, other agents downstream in the pipeline, all of them have the ability to read that plain text through logs as it flows through. And cloud providers have done a remarkable job in making trust plus controls model work for government and regulated workloads both. But the reason we're talking about this now is that some of the new categories of workload, AI agents being the obvious ones, are pushing past what operational controls alone can answer. So today, the regulators and contractors are starting to ask whether the capability exists at all to read my data, not just whether the controls are good enough. And so that's a shift that we're seeing in the market out there. So the cloud provider's hypervisor has the technical ability to read your VM's memory, right? That's nothing new. That's just how virtualization works in general. The hypervisor manages memory for every VM on the host, which means it can also read it. How do the major providers handle that? They have built strong controls around this. For example, access is restricted for production workloads. It's highly audited. And sometimes there's like this two-person rule where when someone's touching a production workload, they always need one other person to review and audit their work. That's how AWS does it, right? But the capability exists. And for regulated workloads, as I said earlier, the capability is what the regulators care about now. So HIPAA, for example, doesn't ask whether your cloud admin promised not to look, right? It asks whether they can look or not, and the answer is yes. With the normal cloud VM, the answer is yes. With the TE, the answer becomes no, because the CPU itself prevents the hypervisor from reading the memory in plain text. So what's a TE? Now imagine you're renting an apartment in a large building. I'm a product manager. I love analogies and telling stories in technical terms, right? So imagine you're renting an apartment in a large building. The landlord owns the building, controls the master keys. We've all rented a place like that at some point, maintains the plumbing and, could in principle let themselves into your unit whenever they want. You trust them to not do that, obviously. When you run software on public cloud machines, you're renting compute in a similar way that you rent the apartment. And for most workloads, as I said, this is fine. But for some workloads like medical records, financial data, sensitive AI models, basically anything that's regulated, that level of trust gets uncomfortable or even legally unworkable in some countries. So a trusted execution environment, or TE, is the computing equivalent of building a vault inside your apartment that even the landlord cannot open. The vault is constructed by the CPU itself, the physical processor chip. And when your program runs inside this vault, three things happen. First, the program's memory is encrypted by the CPU automatically. So the encryption keys live inside the chip and are generated fresh for each TE. Second, the CPU isolates the TE from everything else running on the machine. So normally the hypervisor has like God mode access to all the virtual machines it hosts. It can pause them, read their memory, snapshot their state. With a TE, a CPU enforces that even the hypervisor cannot peek inside. The hypervisor can still start the TE, stop it, refuse to give it CPU time, but it cannot read what's happening inside that environment. And third, the CPU can produce a cryptographic proof of what's running inside the TE. And this proof is called attestation. Say a customer who wants to send sensitive data to your service can actually ask, like, Prove to me that you're running exactly the code that you claim to be running on a real Intel or AMD chip. The CPU would sign a document containing a fingerprint of the software loaded on the TEE using a signing key that was burnt into the chip at the factory. The remote party verifies the signature against that CPU vendor's public certificate authority, the same way your browser verifies your website's TLS certificates. And now they know they're talking to a genuine sealed TEE running exactly the code they expected. And only then they go ahead and send their data. So a TEE gives you three things together, right? Secrecy, your memory is encrypted, integrity, nothing can tamper with the running code, and provability. You can prove remotely what is running inside it. Now let's talk about TCB. TCB is trusted computing base, and it's a deceptively simple concept. The TCB is a complete set of things, hardware, software, people, organizations, that you have to trust in order for your security guarantees to hold. If any component of the TCB is compromised or malicious, your security is going to fail. If something is outside the TCB, it can be compromised, and honestly, we don't care. It's like a guest list for the wedding. Your TCB is the list of people you trust to invite responsibly. And if one of them brings a sketchy +1, your guarantee falls apart. But everyone not on that invitation chain can do whatever they want. They're not your problem because they're not in the building. So for a normal program running on a normal cloud VM today, the TCB is actually enormous, as you can see. Like if you're trusting your own code, obviously, the libraries that your code depends on, the operating system kernel, the device drivers, the hypervisor that creates your VM, the firmware on the motherboard, the firmware on every peripheral, the cloud provider's management software, the cloud provider's data center security staff, and any of those compromised or coerced breaks your security. So what a TEE does is it shrinks your trusted computing base. After moving your workload into a TEE, TCB becomes much smaller. Your own code, obviously, a small piece of firmware that runs the TEE itself, typically like thousands of lines of code, not like millions, and the CPU vendor like Intel, AMD, or NVIDIA, who designed the chip and hold the master signing keys. The hypervisor, the operating system, the cloud providers, administrators, and physical eavesdroppers on the memory bus are all now outside your TCB. So every confidential computing conversation is at heart about this TCB size. How can we make this TCB size as small as possible? The trade-off is that you're now putting more trust in a smaller number of parties, particularly the CPU vendor, who becomes like a single point of failure, right? If Intel's master attestation key were ever stolen, every Intel TE on the planet would become forgeable overnight. And that concentrated trust is the price you pay for the smaller TCB. And it's why some physical attacks like TE.fail are so alarming. So we talked about TE, we talked about the trusted computing base. There are three mechanisms that are the base of how a TE produces proof of what is running inside it. How does it do that? The first one is measured boot. How does the CPU know what it is running? Imagine you walk into a factory and you want to verify they're making the product correctly. What are you going to do? Are you just going to ask someone? No, because they can just lie, right? What you want is a logbook that is tamper evident, kept by an independent party that records every step of the production. So if anything went wrong, the log should show it. And if everything went right, the log should be able to prove it. Measured boot is exactly that idea applied to software starting up. When a machine boots up, code runs in stages. There are several things that happen in stages. In a normal computer, each stage hands control to the next. In a TE, each stage measures the next before running it, meaning it computes a cryptographic hash of the next stage's code and writes that hash into a special register inside the CPU. And then it runs the next step, and then it does the same. And the important property of these registers is that you can only extend them. You can never rewrite them or override them, sorry. Each new measurement gets combined with the existing value using a hash function. So by the time the system has finished booting, the register contains a single value that summarizes that entire chain of code that loaded. And that's how measured boot works. Now coming to remote attestation, which means proving it to someone far away. Chip vendors use a key that is burned into the CPU itself, like I talked about earlier, at the factory, called the device key or the attestation key. And this key is unique to that physical chip and is never accessible to software. Even the CPU vendor don't keep a copy after manufacturing. So the corresponding public key is published by the vendor through a certificate authority that works exactly like the CAs our browsers uses for HTTPS. Anyone can download the vendor's root certificate and verify signatures from genuine chips. So imagine the customer initiates an attestation request by sending the TE a random number per nonce. The TE asks the CPU to produce an attestation report containing the measurement registers from boot, the nonce, and optionally a public key the workload wants to be associated with. We can call it the workload's attestation session key. The CPU then signs this bundle with its burned-in device key, and the customer then does 3 checks. First, they verify the signature chains back to the vendor's root certificate. This proves that the report came from a real chip. Second, they check that the nonce matches with the one they sent. This proves that the report is fresh and isn't a recording of an earlier attestation. And third, they check that the measurement registers match the expected fingerprint of the code they were told it would be running. And if all 3 checks pass, the customer knows now that I'm talking to a genuine TE on a genuine chip from a vendor I trust, running exactly the code I expected right now. So that's remote attestation. And the third one is sealing. Sealing means keeping secrets across restarts. How do you do that? So if a TE has to restart for whatever reason, machine rebooted, workload crashed, etc., there are so many things that can happen that might want you to have to restart your machine. What happens to your secrets? You can't just write them to the disk. Disk is outside your TE. So sealing solves this in a way that the CPU can derive an encryption key again from its own internal secrets combined with the measurement of the TE that's asking. And the TE encrypts its secrets with this derived key and writes the ciphertext to the disk freely. When the TE later restarts, the CPU rederives that same key, but only if the restarting TE has the same measurement as the one that sealed data. Any other CE, any other machine would get a different key. So it's a good solution, but as you can imagine, this can be really painful when it does not work. For example, if you upgraded your workload, the measurement would change, right? And the new version cannot read the data sealed by the old version, and that's going to be a challenge. There are some workarounds that you can do for this, but everything that you work around increases your TCB in general, and so it's a calculated risk that you take. That said, I'm going to just talk about a little bit about the vendor landscape currently, because this is such a new topic and things are changing literally every month. We can walk through the major players who provide hardware that is a TE base. Each one applies the same 4 ideas we talked about: memory encryption, isolation, measured boot, attestation. Each one with different trade-offs about how big the TE is, what's in the TCB, and what attacks have been demonstrated against them. So Intel SGX, for example, takes the most aggressive approach. Instead of protecting the whole virtual machine, it protects individual processes. You write your application normally, then designate certain functions to run inside an enclave, a small encrypted region of memory the CPU isolates from everything else. The advantage of this is that you get a very small TCB. The disadvantage is that, and which is why this is not very popular at all is that you have to rewrite your application to split it into trusted and untrusted halves. Nobody's rewriting their application. And so this is hard in practice, right? It's hard to implement. So SGX has the worst, and also SGX has the worst published track record of any TE. It has a long sequence of attacks that have been repeatedly broken its confidentiality and guarantees. Then came Intel TDX that takes the opposite approach from SGX. Instead of protecting a tiny piece of application, it wraps an entire virtual machine in encryption. AMD SEV SNP is architecturally very similar to TDX. It wraps VM in encryption, but with different internal mechanisms. AMD adds a feature to this called VMPLS, Virtual Machine Privilege Levels, which allow nested isolation inside the confidential VM. It is very useful for security-sensitive subsystems running within the same workload. ARM's contribution to this is that while Intel and AMD tried TEs on a CPU that was originally designed for non-confidential workloads, ARM redesigned things from scratch. So architecturally, CCA is like cleaner, much more cleaner because it was natively designed for confidential computing. Now, AWS doesn't use Intel SGX or AMD SEV SNP for its confidential computing offering. Instead, Nitro Enclave uses AWS's own Nitro hypervisor, a custom hypervisor running on dedicated security chips, to carve out an isolated VM from a parent EC2 instance. And Microsoft basically supports everything. They support SGX VMs, SEV SNP VMs, TDX VMs, and confidential GPU VMs with NVIDIA H100. So, and they've built additional infrastructure on top of that. So far we talked about TE, TCB, what is the vendor landscape, what are the like basic principles that these things follow. And so far, everything I have described would apply equally to any confidential workload. But what makes AI agents specifically harder and different? Mainly 4 things. Agents don't just talk to humans, right? They talk to each other. So for example, a confidential database has a clear shape. Clients send queries, database answers, both sides authenticate via TLS, attestation runs once the connection is established. And an AI agent system looks very different. Agents are composed of multiple smaller agents. A planning agent that decides what to do, a retrieval agent that fetches relevant documents, several tool agents that call external services. Each of these might run in its own TE for isolation. Now you have many TEs talking to each other, and each one needs to verify others before sharing prompts. So that's some added overhead. Also, agents call tools that didn't really exist when they were attested. This is the harder problem, right? When a TE is measured at boot, the measurement captures exactly what code is loaded at that moment. But an AI agent's whole reason of existence is to make decisions at runtime about what tools to call. Search engines, databases, APIs, other agents. And that weren't part of the initial measurement. Agents have memory that outlives any one attested session. A chat-style agent, for example, is designed to have long-term memory, conversation history with each user, learned preferences, vector embeddings of past interaction, and this state needs to persist across restarts and upgrades. And even when everything is set up correctly, every agent attested, mutual TLS in place, sealed memory carefully managed, the chain of trust can still break. The piece of code that routes messages between agents is frequently a like normal LangChain style application running on a non-confidential VM. So that's what makes agent harder to run in a trusted execution environment. And we talked a little bit about like CPUs, right? We have a bunch of vendors out there offering CPUs for confidential computing, but GPUs are a different problem. And what makes GPU harder than CPUs? So a CPU TE is conceptually simple because the CPU does its own memory encryption, and the CPU is the thing being attested, right? a GPU sits across a PCIe bus from the CPU, meaning the data has to physically travel from CPU memory across a wire on the motherboard to the GPU memory and back. And that traversal is now a vulnerable surface that doesn't exist in the CPU-only workloads. So anyone who can sniff PCIe traffic can see everything, and PCI is much easier to physically probe than CPU memory. NVIDIA's solution to on H100 and H200 has three parts. First, the GPU's own memory, HBM, the high bandwidth memory, is hardware firewalled. Only the GPU can read it. The CPU and the other peripherals cannot read that memory. Second, the PCIe traffic between CPU and GPU is encrypted and integrity protected with keys established during attestation. And third, the GPU has its own attestation report signed by a key burned into the GPU at the factory that proves it's a real H100 in confidential computing mode with the right firmware. So let's look at the current state of GPUs in confidential computing. Now, NVLink is the high bandwidth interconnect that lets multiple GPUs on the same server talk to each other directly, bypassing the CPU. It's how large language model training and inference is parallelized across GPUs. And on H100 and H200, NVLink traffic is in the clear, even in confidential computing mode. So a multi-GPU LLM inference deployment running in confidential computing on mode either has to route GPU to GPU traffic through the CPU, which is super slow, or accept that NVLink traffic is unprotected. And this is the single most damaging limitation of confidential GPU computing on Hopper as of 2026. So we talked about CPUs and GPUs and how confidential computing works in both. But we can all sense that, right? Like when we do all of this magic, there is obviously going to be some overhead in performance. That's almost always the case. But surprisingly, to spend some time on performance numbers, NVIDIA claims that confidential computing on H100 performs close to unprotected, very close to unprotected mode when the amount of compute is large relative to the amount of input data moving across PCIe. And there's another benchmark, Fala's benchmark, that says that average overhead is under 7% across realistic LLM serving workloads, and it's inversely correlated with the model size. So for the 70 billion model, overhead approaches almost zero. And for the 8 billion model, it's the largest in set. So the bigger your model, the lower your overhead, performance overhead. The multiple smaller models you run, more your overhead is going to be because it's going to be compute heavy. So bigger models do more compute per byte transferred, and so the fixed per byte encryption cost gradually pays off better. And there's a skeptical benchmark in there that says throughput drops 45 to 70% in confidential mode, and GPU utilization is roughly 50% slower. But again, TLDR is that the overhead is very low, between 0 and 7% for steady state LLM inference of large models, and up to 45 to 70% for load heavy or short query workloads. So you can measure, if you're planning to run your agents and models in confidential computing system mode, you can measure your workload and plan and accept your overheads accordingly. I also want to talk about like two very interesting architectures that exist out there. And this was briefly mentioned in the previous talk as well. So Apple Private Cloud Compute is the most ambitious production deployment of a confidential computing for AI workloads in existence. Apple uses it for the cloud half of Apple Intelligence, the on-device AI features in iOS and Mac. Apple designed their own server chips with confidential computing primitives integrated from ground up, including a secure enclave and a measured boot chain. They hardened their operating system, no remote admin access, no shells, no debugging interfaces in production. Every binary is signed. And this is where it gets very interesting. They take the ability to not be able to target a single device very seriously. So the client devices route requests through an anonymizing relay, such that Apple also cannot tell which device is making which request, even within their own data centers. No other commercial confidential computing offering provides this today. And they provide verifiable transparency. So every production server image is published to a public transparency log. The client device verifies that the image is about to talk to its logged before sending data. So if Apple deployed a malicious image someday, the log would actually catch it. And substantial portions of their private cloud compute are publicly inspectable via Apple's virtual research environment. And Apple extended their bug bounty program to PCC specifically. And so one thing to note is that Apple is still the TCB here, of course. It's under your trusted computing base. They do sign the images, they operate the relays, the silicon is theirs, but that said, PCC is just like unprecedented example at this stage and this scale. The second one is Anthropic Confidential Inference. Anthropic published a research blog just in June 2025 describing a target architecture for confidential inference through its framed as research. So they have 3 TE requirements: encrypted memory isolated from other workloads, disabled debugging features, cryptographic proof that the correct code is running. And a TPM serves as root of trust. So a small trusted loader in a separate isolated VM acts as a virtual accelerator and only accepts programs signed by Anthropic's secure continuous integration server. What Anthropic says about it is that it isn't well established as of yet. They will continue to work on closing this gap, but in the meantime, they'll rely on compute providers to maintain security at the physical data center and in hypervisor software. So even at the frontier labs, the full architecture isn't ready yet. And the current production reality is just trust the cloud provider. Now that said, you might ask, like, isn't just another security theater? The cloud provider still controls the hardware, right? And yes, partly yes. The CPU vendor and the GPU vendor are in the TCB. Their hardware design, supply chain, fused root keys, and micro code signing keys are all concentrated points of trust. So if you assume a nation-state level adversary with supply chain capability, TEs won't protect you against that advisory. But what TEs do protect you against is the cloud operator, the host OS, the hypervisor, co-tenants, ordinary data center staff, and with care, physical eavesdropping on the in-package memory. And that's meaningful reduction in TCD. What about side channels? SGX has been broken so many times. True, SGX has been broken repeatedly, each time mitigated via microcode at real performance cost. Although scalable, SGX is currently considered patched, but the track record is track record, right? So side channels are real and ongoing, and the trend is that vendors patch them, performance take a hit, and the threat model evolves. So I'm a little bit over time. That was my talk today. I don't want to take time from the other person's presentation, but I'll be hanging around the speaker lounge. This is a very new topic for us, right? We at Nutanix are still evolving and learning and trying to implement our own version of it. But I would love to have further discussion if you guys have any more further insights to add or any questions to me. Thank you.